Welcome to NAVEUR Magazine. I'm Petty Officer Jonathan Kopinger. This month we bring you to what used to be the northern part of Yugoslavia. Now, just south of the city of Zagreb, in a camp formerly inhabited by the Yugoslavian military, the armed services of 34 countries have come together under the UN banner. This is a strange group divided by language, culture, and national identity. But they have one common cause, and that is to bring an end to this war.
We'd like to get an early jump on summer with a trip to camp. People from around the world come here to dig up landmines, drive trucks through war zones, and work for peace.
Smile, you're in kind of camera.
How are you today?
Not fine.
Thanks.
You too.
You'll notice over here on the right that it says beware of mined areas, stay on roads, and of course I've
Welcome to Camp Pleso. Located just south of Zagreb, Croatia, this United Nations camp is the main headquarters for most of the 32,000 UN troops stationed throughout the Balkan region. Here you'll find the various contingents of the 34 countries contributing to the UN protection force called UNPROFOR. The reason for being here? To help bring peace to this troubled region.
Well, I believe in the United Nations. I believe that we're doing the right thing here. I believe that without us, this would be a lot worse, Well, my personal reasons was, of course, it's quite an experience for a civilian like I am. Quite an experience, for possibility to make military jobs. Perhaps that's one of those reasons. Well, my father was in the United Nations forces twice, something like the 60s and 70s. He'd been telling me all kinds of stories about peacekeeping and job in here. And, well, I got the impression that that would be something good.
The American Joint Task Force here is called Operation Provide Promise Forward. At present, about 250 sailors and Marines make up the majority of this unit. Most of them work at the American hospital, which provides emergency treatment for all UN personnel in the former Yugoslavia.
There are a lot of people from a lot of different countries who have been helped considerably by this hospital being here, because they have been ill, because they have been blown up owing to mines, stepping on mines, vehicles hit mines, or so on and so forth, or they have been treated and returned to their units here. That not only helps the person who gets the treatment, of course, but it helps the force as a whole, because it provides a level of confidence for the people who are in the field.
But helping a patient is no easy job when you can't understand what they're saying.
Communication is the biggest problem that we have. And it's pretty interesting. Like this morning, we had a Russian. He came in yesterday, and we tried to communicate to him that we needed a translator, because we really didn't know what the problem was. And this morning he showed up at 7:30 still without a translator. So we basically examined him to see what the problem could be, and then we just basically went from there.
Like the Fleet Hospital staff, the Seabees from Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 40 set up shop in March, bringing their special talent of can-do to the camp. And about the same time, a unit of Marine military police arrived from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
We're doing our part here, providing security here for the hospital, that way those peacekeepers down there and down south, down in Sarajevo and everything, they have a way, if they get injured or something, they have medical treatment.
Army and Air Force also work and live with the sailors and Marines here in a small area surrounding the hospital called Tent City. If you stay long enough, you'd almost think you'd walked into a joint service episode of the TV show MASH.
You'll notice that everybody waves to everybody here. It's very much like a small town. There are only 300 and some Americans here, and it doesn't take very long for everybody to get to know everybody else.
It's something where you're contributing to something that's important in the big scheme of things. And lastly, you get some opportunities to meet some people that you would never, ever have the opportunity to meet working in any other type of an operation.
On March 17th of this year, the Navy relieved the Air Force and took over running the hospital. The main mission of this hospital is to provide emergency medical treatment for any of the 32,000 UNPROFOR personnel stationed here. It doesn't matter from what country you're from. Everyone gets the exact same excellent care. Well, there is one Russian soldier who gets treated a little nicer than everyone else. This is Dmitri. He's a 19-year-old corporal in the Russian army. Dimitri has been making rounds in the hospital because he stepped on a landmine and had to have his left leg amputated below the knee. He's just one of the many injured UNPRO 4 personnel who make their way through this hospital. With so many different people from so many different countries, you would think language would be a problem for all the Americans working at the hospital.
It was very interesting. A lot of the Europeans speak English. They speak, matter of fact, 3 or 4 different languages. So it's been interesting in that respect. I've kind of warned them this problem before I ever showed up, so I prepared in advance and brought a lot of pictures to help explain things to patients, explain exercises to patients. We've got a lot of pictures that we, and exercise sheets that we give to patients once we've finished them up and shown them exercises to perform so that they've got something to walk out of here with to help remind them.
One of the ways the hospital staff is working things out is by using a computer language program. The hospital has 3 laptop computers in key positions around the hospital. These computers are programmed with many different languages, so the doctors can ask basic questions. If the doctor can't get their message across using the computer, then sign language is the language of choice. In Dimitri's case, it's easier to communicate because there's a Croatian civilian doctor working with the emergency room who translates for the hospital.
When Dimitri came here, we had some problems with communication, so he speaks only Russian, so I helped a little bit in his primary treatment while he came here, and I help in any communication which is needed between all the docs and nurses who are treating him.
The tent hospital is complete with a modern operating room and an intensive care unit. Some of the nurses and corpsmen preferred this ICU because everything is portable and not built into the walls. Even while on the ICU, Dimitri's doctor started him on his physical therapy. This brought Dimitri in contact with yet another of the Fleet Hospital's departments. The physical therapy department is the busiest department in the hospital. The one doctor and corpsman mainly see patients with back and feet problems. The only other department that is as busy as PT is the dental clinic. This is probably because the dental clinic is the only one around that is painless. The doctors, nurses, and corpsmen are just as proud of this hospital as the one back in San Diego. Just because this hospital is in a tent doesn't mean there is less care given than the hospital with hard walls. This is very much in evidence when the staff is treating Dimitri.
He's like a little brother, you know. It's just, he's a young guy, 19 years old, and he's got a long road ahead of him. You know, he's going to have a physically demanding road. And sometimes you just need a friend to just socialize with, even if you don't speak the same language.
After 5 weeks of the U.S. Navy hospital treatment, Dimitri went downtown with staff members to be fit with a prosthetic leg. The young Russian is looking forward to walking normally again and is very grateful for the chance to do so. He is also thankful for the treatment he has received at the American hospital, treatment he didn't expect.
He said right away it was visible that everybody was really friendly here, and that it's just been great. Yeah, it's a pretty good experience for him compared to where he was before.
Dimitri will soon move out of the hospital, but will remain in the American compound so his doctors can keep an eye on him. You know, mine injuries are one of the worst types seen at this hospital. And unfortunately, there has been an increase of people being maimed in fields just like the one I'm standing next to right now. People injured with a deadly and inexpensive seed that is growing out of control.
The American hospital at Camp Plaso often reaps the grim harvest of what has been called the devil's seed, better known as landmines. Everywhere war has gone in the former Yugoslavia, it spread the suffering from these buried explosives, as those who work here know all too well.
This is the wound. That sounded louder than what we usually hear around here.
That was the detonation of a landmine about 300 yards away from this unit that's already treated 10 landmine victims lately. Even the smallest mines, which carry a charge of about 6 to 10 grams of plastic explosive, produces devastating results.
One of our patients had both legs blown off. Another patient had one leg blown off and the other leg badly damaged. A third patient had his entire sacrum, his bottom, and his left hip blown off. A number of the others had shrapnel wounds to feet, hands, neck, and areas like that were not as severe as the ones I mentioned earlier, but all of them needed operation.
Before UN forces took control of this former Yugoslavian army base, the warring factions planted an unknown number of minefields during their seesaw battles here. While many of the minefields lie waiting to be found, one way or another, many have been cordoned off by the UN forces.
You can see a lot of places in here that's been fenced in by barbed wire or some plastic tapes. And on this fences that you'll find the different type of mine signs. Normally the NATO used a triangular red one with the name mines on, and that's telling you that you have to stay out of these areas because these areas have been mined during the war or before UN came in here.
These French soldiers have already found several anti-personnel mines, which are designed more to seriously injure than to kill. Clearing this minefield is long, tedious, and potentially lethal work. Each man has to prod the ground at a 45-degree angle with his knife and carefully remove the foliage. It takes approximately 1 hour for an explosive ordnance team to clear 1 square meter.
We can find this mine under tripwire of another
During
mine.
this briefing, members of a UN explosive ordnance team talk to Americans about the different type of landmines and how to avoid them as much as possible.
As with most people, after a month or so being here, you tend to get this false sense of security, that everything's okay, no one's dying from the mines around here. But now I found out that they are present, and the danger is still here.
The hospital isn't the only thing at Camp Placer located in a tent. The bathrooms, the living quarters, the showers, almost everything is in a tent. But it isn't exactly like staying a week at Camp Peaceful Pines, but then it's not that bad either.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Nope, and it's not even close to Kansas. It's a charming little place that goes by the name of Tent City. Now, on a good day, the population of this wigwamish metropolis is just around 300. But it does have all the civility and refinement of any burg twice its size.
Well, for Marines, actually, it's not too bad. Usually when we go to the field, we're kind of used to having a regular little GP tent, actually, getting a shower, maybe once, twice out of the week. But actually being here is not too bad. You have, the weight room.
Along with the gym tent, there's the chapel tent, and the tent that's sort of a combination theater-library. There's even a designated smoking tent. I mean, after all, this is government housing. Also, there's the transient tent, and it could pass as a hotel if you have a good enough imagination. And as with any community, the living quarters is what make the town home. Each tent contains a residence for anywhere from 10 to 15 people.
You're a lot closer with them, see them every day, in and out. Sometimes it's hectic, but, and again, sometimes it's a lot of fun. You're hearing everything that's going on in each other's lives.
As anyone would expect, the Seabees have just about the best setup in town, which until recently included a hot tub. While other residents have to brave the elements and walk to the laundromat, the Seabees have their own in-house washer and dryer. Also recently installed is their spacious TV room, complete with comfortable homemade lounge chairs. Not to be outdone by the Seabees, one of the nurses' tents boasts a very inviting guest quarters.
This is also where we keep our little coffee area, and this is our little lounge area over here. We call this the den. We've got our magazines and everything set up. And sometimes when we have visiting nurses come in from other countries, we like to keep them. We can put them here so they can sleep here, and they don't have to worry about looking for a place out in town or sleeping in the transient tent. It's more homey here.
Living in these cozy retreats from the cold, cruel world, there are but few complaints about life in Tent City.
Walking all the way to the bathroom. That's the only thing, getting up in the middle of the night, having to leave to go to the bathroom.
Ah, yes, the loo, privy, toilet, or head, whatever you want to call it, it is a bit of a walk away. But ever accommodating as city planners were, there's 2 potty tents, each for both sexes. That brings us to the showers. Each morning, city residents file out and make their exodus to where they make themselves beautiful for the day. The shower tents have all the basic needs: sinks, showers, changing areas, and funhouse mirrors. All this and a light, too. What more can you ask for? No, it isn't Camp Peaceful Pines, but then it is a place to hang your hat and have fun with your neighbors. And who knows, someday you might have a place of your own under the stars.
Oh, Auntie Em, there's no place like home.
Almost everywhere you go in the Navy, you'll find Seabees. They're always busy building and fixing things and just keeping the Navy running smoothly. Camp Placer Seabees are no exception. However, as you'll soon see, they are doing something here that's just a little irregular.